All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to HBAP Startups. Just getting my computer situated. All right, so let's get started. For those of you who are new to the HBAP Startups group, we have a few announcements that we do at the beginning of each meeting. We do a short networking breakout room, and then we'll come back together for our main event. First off is our mission. We are here to help foster an innovation and entrepreneur community coming out of HBAP. Our goal is to provide our members with the tools, knowledge, leadership, and confidence necessary to create and grow their businesses from the ground up. And I also post, so we have our lovely little community and our website, which is, it's locked down to HBAPers only, but I'm going to post all this stuff in the Zoom chat right now. But I will say for the people who are new and from outside of HBAP, please sign up for the newsletter link. It's the last link I posted in the Zoom chat. We can definitely keep you posted and invite you to our future events. Also, please bring a guest, contribute. Our HBAPers, we want plus ones. And what's the next slide? Oh, Susan.
Yeah. So again, for you newcomers, in the spirit of this, as we were just talking about, safe place, we want to make sure that we're collaborative, that we honor each other's confidential items. And so a note that all rights are reserved by the presenter unless otherwise noted. And we also adopt the feedback approach from Francis Fry, which is for every one piece of feedback that might seem negative, we want to give 5 pieces of feedback that are positive. And then if there's any worries or issues with conflict of interest, just bring it up with Todd and me, and we'll figure it out with you.
Awesome. Welcome, new folks. I see one person, Marlene.
Yeah.
I don't know if, can you unmute and introduce yourself real quick? I don't know if Ravel is.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Yeah, Ravel's brother from the Dominican Republic. Nice to meet you.
Welcome, welcome.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I just wanted to call you out. So upcoming stuff. Today we've got Nima Torabi. I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I hope I am.
Yes.
Good. Next week is Sean Grant doing his a follow-up on his blockchain presentation. The following week, we're doing our monthly HBAP social. Then Tom Bellator and David New will be joining us. Don't forget that the pitch competition is the finals are June 25th. Susan, when's the submission deadline?
Sometime in May.
It's sometime in May. We need to find out
the date yet.
I need to remind myself to update this slide for next week to find out when that deadline is. And procrastinate now, don't put it off. That's always a good idea. All right, let me create a bunch of breakout rooms and we can all hang out. And let me make sure I have the time set correctly. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Sorry, struggling. All right, let's try it. See you in a few. All right, I think everyone is coming back. Welcome back. I hope you had a fun breakout room. Before I forget, stick around at the end after Nima's finished presenting. We will put up a poll, a Zoom poll to get some data, some feedback, and we'll also hang out for some overtime. And without further ado, I would like to introduce everyone to Nima Torabi. Nima is the co-founder of a company called Liberatii. Their mission is to eliminate database vendor lock-in for enterprises. If you work at a large company and you have a database and you want to switch cloud providers or even from internal to a different, it is so hard, it is so challenging, and Liberatii apparently has a really good solution for you. That was my pitch for Liberatii, Nima. I hope that helped. He has a technical background with a master's in electrical engineering from Montreal's École Polytechnique and an MBA from Imperial College London. He has 15 years of experience in the field of databases, virtualization, and the cloud, and he has held CTO and head of product roles before saying enough is enough and then moving on to go co-found Liberatii. He is interested in the intersection of science, engineering, and business. And if we could all briefly unmute and give a nice warm round of applause to Nima. Nima, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing and the floor is yours. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the introduction, Todd. Thanks for having me tonight. It's really a great pleasure for me to speaking with you, with fellow entrepreneurs and techies in this community. So I'm Nima Torabi, co-founder of Liberatii, and tonight I'm going to share a bit of story about Liberatii, and I'm here to learn from you. I don't have much to offer in terms of story, but we've made a lot of mistakes, and maybe those mistakes might be, educational for some. So it was 2010. I was working as a software engineer for a company that was doing application modernization for banks, for insurance companies, and accounting firms. And we had a customer, which was Thomson Reuters. I'm sure all of you know about them. They were working on a project to modernize an application for one of the US counties. It was a taxation software. And they were trying to change the database vendor. They had their application and they had a contract with Oracle, and they were storing their data with Oracle in Oracle databases, and they were paying huge fees to Oracle for database licenses. And they wanted to save some money for the government and move to Microsoft databases, which was way cheaper. So they started the project in 1995, and 15 years later, 2010, the project hadn't finished. It was a total disaster and failure. And I was working with the project manager at Thomson Reuters, and he said to me, I wish there was a tool that would connect our application to a new database, and we could have saved like a decade and millions of dollars. And at the time, it was a triggering point for us. And I realized that it's a very deep problem. It's a very deep problem in IT, and that's the problem that I have to investigate and dig further. Just to give you a bit of background about this problem, let me just take you back to 1960s, where databases, which store data, I'm sure all of you know, databases, they emerged, and people, and especially guys at IBM, they developed a language to access data and relational database. They called it Standard Query Language, SQL. And it was supposed to be a universal language for databases. But soon after the Standard Query Language came up, every vendor, they developed their own version of that language. Oracle developed its own version, IBM developed its own, and Microsoft developed its own. And they kind of diverged from its original route that IBM developed. And this, over time, this created a vendor lock-in. If you were a customer and if you were developing an application with Oracle database, your application wouldn't be able to communicate with the Microsoft database or IBM database. And that was an opportunity for database vendors, because they had a lock-in. As soon as they got the customer's data, they knew that they can have the customer forever. And 60 years from that, 50 years after that, the problem still exists, and it's much worse than before. There are nearly 700 databases in commercial databases, and every week there is a new startup with a new database. So the problem is, if organizations, they want to use those databases, are they supposed to keep learning about too many languages, or how are they supposed to maintain their applications. So when I heard about the guy at Thomson Reuters, and he said, I wish there was a magic tool that would connect my applications to any database without changing my application. So that was the triggering moment. And I said to myself, you know what, this is something that I have to investigate. And in 2019, we started Liberatii. And basically we raised seed investment, and we started to pitch this idea to customers, to partners like Amazon, to Microsoft, to Snowflake, and those big guys. And interestingly, the feedback that we received from those guys was very positive. Everyone was interested in the idea. Nobody ever doubted about the idea, but they had one big question: can you build this? Can you make that happen? It's like too good to be true, or so many people tried this, but they never succeeded. So that our challenge was a bit different than most startups, because most startups, they have to validate the idea, and they are sure that once the idea is validated, they're nearly sure that they can build the product. But for us, it was more about knowing that we can build something that we deliver what we promise to people. And since 2019, we've been working on building a translator for query languages that does query translations in real time without without any latency or without any delay, with complete application correctness. So let's say you have an application in Oracle or Microsoft and you want to run it on a different database vendor, then you connect to our data platform, and our data platform does all the magic, all the complex translations, and it adapts it to the new database vendor. So the idea that we have for this is, no matter what programming language you learn, no matter what data storage system you're comfortable with, you should be able to code in your own preferred language. And there should be some sort of connector, some sort of translator that connect your application or code to any other dissimilar system without you having to worry about these incompatibilities. So that's the essence of the product or the startup, so that any system can talk to any system, and developers, they do the code in their own language or with the database or data storage system that they're comfortable with, and we connect them to any other storage system. Therefore, the vendor lock-in would be eliminated. So big guys, big vendors, they would know that enterprises, their customers, they have an option to moving from one vendor to another, and they can't put huge prices on their technology, and we would make these transitions and these migrations much easier. We are still early in our journey. Over the last 2.5 years, we've had a lot of challenges, and those challenges, some of them were technical, some of them were related to organizational behavior and culture of the team, and some of them were related to the business side. I can just to give you some learnings that we've had, or to share some of the mistakes that we've made over the last 2.5 years. One mistake. So this, if I can go back in time, one of the things that I would really define from day one would be the values of the company. So when we started, most tech companies, they start with a product idea or a problem, which is fine. but sometimes people overlook to define the values and to define why they are doing this. Is it just for making money, or is it for much more than this? And a couple of years or some after that, they are, for the PR or for whatever reason, they say, oh, we should have a section on the website about the values, and they do it as something to show off to people, but it's not very deep, in their belief. We had some values in mind and from day one, but we didn't make them concrete and crystal clear to every employee, and that created a bit of friction between the co-founders, between the team members, and at some point we realized that the root of our problem, and most of the problem with our internal communication or communicating with customers or investors, it's about the values are not clear enough, and they are not communicated properly. So at some point we decided to sit down, find the core values, find the values that are personal to us and the values that are necessary for the business. We discussed it with the team and with our investors and with our board, and that once we defined it and we communicated them well, everything got much easier for us in our everyday. And personally, I think we should always remind ourselves why we are doing what we are doing our everyday, and just have a bigger motivation and bigger cause to do our everyday job. And that was for me the most valuable experience that I had. The second I think mistake that I think we made was basically thinking a lot or overthinking. Lots of success that we've had was when we just did stuff and we didn't do it with thinking. And it might sound a bit strange because wise guys usually, they always think and they plan and they execute. But my point is, we should usually spend less time on thinking or planning and more time on execution. And the focus we have to accept that failure should happen at some point. The earlier that we make that failure, it would be a better lesson for us. And if I could go back to when we started, I would make more decisions faster and with minimum amount of thinking. Just think about the values and just about thinking about the big picture, and just make the quick decision as quickly as possible. If it fails, it failed, but the more damage can be done by procrastinating or delaying making decisions. With the startups, it's really important to build a team, and I think building the team is more difficult or more challenging than building the product. As one of the mistakes that we made with the team building was thinking too much about hiring, and we were very careful about hiring, which at some point I realized, and some of our mentors said to us, we should hire fast and we should fire faster. That's I think as long as you are clear about your values, you communicated with your team, and you just interview and basically filter people based on the values, you can always upskill them, teach them technical skills, but it's really difficult to bring them to the same values as you are. As long as they are in line with you in terms of values, you should hire them, and if they are not fit for the job, you can fire them, but don't delay that decision. And one of the other things that I think was our mistake, and it's a mistake that most startups do, is having wrong KPI or wrong North Star. And we always do put our time and energy on stuff that doesn't matter. And I think most startups have to define product market fit, and their goal should be reaching product market fit from day one, and they should have crystal clear definition of what that means. And in any business it might be different, but when we started, we had some fake KPIs. For example, we wanted to see how much website visitors we have, or how many conversations we have per week. But sometimes those KPIs don't translate into a real KPI, and we were just deceiving ourselves, saying, oh, we are making progress. But basically sometimes you have to just sit down and see whether those KPIs are based in line with your overall or your main KPI, which is product market fit. Am I making the product that people want and they are going to pay for it? So these are the mistakes that we've made, and we are still learning from the community and the tech communities around the world. And this year we are going to raise $5 to $10 million, and that's our effort at the moment. We've put our effort in two channels. One is for fundraising funnel, and the other is sales funnel, and that's where the most of our efforts goes at the moment. I don't know what else to say. I'm very excited about this session, and I forgot what I was supposed to say. I'm happy to take questions.
This was amazing, Nima. Thank you. I'm like taking notes. Okay, just to be crystal clear. Actually, so we'll open up to Q&A. Is that all right?
Yes.
All right, good. So we'll go with DJ, and then we'll go to Ravel. And Firdaus has got his hand. He's applauding. So everyone, yeah.
Thank you.
DJ.
Hi, good evening, Nima. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
My question is in terms of your startup, do you have the IP value? And if there is an IP value, what it is, right? Because it's amazing to see in terms of the pain point that you are trying to solve, in terms of the solution gap that you've come up with. And pardon me if I'm minimizing the value of what you've come up with in terms of your solution, but that to me is something that can be probably easily replicated by someone else, especially in the bigger companies. So that would have been a threat, and that's why my question kind of reference to in terms of that IP value.
Okay, so I said to you about the talk that I had with the Thomson Reuters guy. So a few years after that, I made a prototype myself, and which would connect an Oracle application to a Microsoft database. And I was a bit crazy, and I was really excited about this prototype. And I thought that maybe Bill Gates is gonna knock on my door and is gonna buy my company. And I cold email CEO of Microsoft and all the VPs and all the C-level executives with my personal email at the time. And so this is the crazy part. And interestingly, three of those guys came back to me, and they introduced me to the head of databases at Microsoft, which was really exciting for me at the time. And I was like, oh my God, I've hit the jackpot, and they're gonna buy my company, for millions. And for a year, I was in touch with the global database team at Microsoft. and they were, testing my prototype. And at the end of the year, the head of databases at Microsoft left, and I chased him, and I had a personal conversation, friendly conversation with him. And he told me, we've been working on this project for years, and it never materialized, and we never could build a prototype that you built. And Microsoft is basically just testing the water, and they just want to see what have you done that they failed. And he said to me, if I'm gonna be honest with you, just don't think that you have a technology and these guys will buy your technology or acquire your company. Just focus on finding the customers, and your value is the intellectual property, and the technology is one thing, and having customers pay for it is another thing. And he said, focus on your focus should be shifted toward finding customers and having big logos on your website, and that's what that's what your biggest value is. And since then, we were trying to not get obsessed with the technology, but having the customer, building the relationship with customer, and getting their loyalty is, I think, the biggest asset we could have. But just to answer your question, the technology is it's not easy to replicate. In 2010, Amazon started something called Amazon Babelfish, and they've put 100 engineers working on it, and their prototype is still having lots of bugs, and the problem is really a challenging problem, and anyone can enter and just contribute to solve part of the problem. But the point is it's not an easy problem. Nobody can do it over time, and we haven't done it over time. It would take us more resources to make the product enterprise ready. I don't know if I've answered your question, DJ.
No, you did. I was just curious, how would you protect yourself? And yes, there's a learning lesson that you said that at the same time, like you went and started building your customers and building your trust in those customers, and you ensured that the revenue cycle is there. But I was just curious whether even you tried to file for a patent or not.
So this is the conversation so I personally wanted to have patents, but the advice that we've got from some of the mentors and investors that we have was basically focusing on the product development and the customers rather than revealing what we are doing at the moment, or spending money or resources on the patent. And after the Google and Samsung and Apple case, Google and Oracle, the patent is if big guys, they want to come after you, they're gonna come, and you won't have the resources to fight against those guys or stop those guys to copying your code. And I've seen personally that Amazon has done a lot of IP infringements, and they don't care basically, and they just build their business, and they just move on. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think there is a lot of focus and emphasis on rather than having a company that has revenue is more important than having a company with patent that doesn't have revenue.
No, that is true, right? But when the time comes, and I don't know what the strategy is, right? One strategy is either an exit strategy or you go IPO, right? You sell your company. When it comes to selling your company as a platform or a solution, then having that patent basically just adds more to your evaluation in terms of what you've done, right? That's why I was.
Yeah. So we are also thinking of making the product open source. That's one. And there is a great example of Databricks.
Don't do it. Sorry.
Yeah, and there are some very successful cases of open source that we are still considering, but that would change a lot about the business model.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't stay muted and when I don't know if I'm being helpful. Sorry. DJ, thank you. Ravel, and then we'll go to Firdos.
Thank you, Nima. Excellent presentation. So I just started a new project at work where I'm trying to like get together about 30 servers and all the databases from car dealerships and service departments into one master database and bring it up to the cloud. Right now, it just sits in 30 different buildings. And it seems like this would, like your company is what I'm gonna need to sit in between my databases, my master database, and then serving it up to the cloud, right? My question is, will I be able to like continue to work with Liberatii to manipulate my database and to for data governance and stuff like that, to offer permission for users, or this is strictly for just to upload the information to the cloud?
Sorry, the last 10 seconds you cut off. Can you say the last sentence?
I'm sorry. So is this something that is Liberatii something that I would be able to use to work with my database, to manipulate the database and query the database, or is it just to upload it into the cloud?
Yeah, you can use it as an aggregator for multiple databases. Let's say you have one database in Oracle, one database in Microsoft, and one filing in a blob storage in the cloud, and you want to have a unified view of your data. Okay, then your application would see one interface, which is Liberatii, and then you can query all those dissimilar or disparate data sources together, and Liberatii would aggregate them, does query federation, and present data in a format that your application understands.
Okay, so once I have the database, let's say that I have just one master database and it sits on AWS, right? And let's say that I want to work with that. Would I need to write code to query the database, like a SQL command, select from, or stuff like that? Or would it be like, click and like the clicks? Does it have an interface?
It's more about writing codes. No, it's there are tools that they would graphical user interfaces that would generate queries, but we don't have those. There are tools in the market that would generate those queries, and our data layer would receive those queries, and it would connect it to these similar data sources and would get your data.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ravel. Firdos, and then Victor.
Thank you, Nima. So I was just going through your website. I was reading through it, and it mentions a lot of the on-prem apps as being Oracle-based. So is it a connection between the cloud SQL the output from this Liberatii, are they just catered towards Oracle for now, or can it take other forms as well?
When we started, most of the use cases was for moving on-premise applications to the cloud, and we built this data layer for the cloud, so that even if your application is on the cloud, on-premise, it could connect to the cloud database, and you don't have to lift and shift. But now most of the applications or databases, they are already in the cloud. It's just a matter of migrating from Oracle to Microsoft or Amazon. The translator we've had, we created a generic translator for any language to any language. So this was our focus, and for use cases we picked Oracle and Microsoft and Postgres. So any combination of these three databases we have support for now. But if there is any demand, we could add more support, and it's really easy to teach the translator for how to create the translation rules for new languages. So this is, we will support more database languages in the future. But for now, the majority of use cases: Oracle, Microsoft, and Postgres.
Thanks, Ferdos. Victor, and then Susan.
Yes, thanks, Nima, for joining us tonight. It's been insightful to hear you speak. I am wondering, do you find use for your application solution as a transactional interoperator between, for example, vendors and customers or anything like that? Or is it really more about bulk moving data and bulk reporting data?
It's a bit of both. So first, let me give you a real use case. An S&P 500 company, they have thousands of reports written for Oracle, over 40 years, and it's on Oracle databases on premise. And now they've decided to move to the cloud, and their option is Amazon and Microsoft, and they want to move that data to data warehouses like Microsoft Synapse or Amazon Redshift. So the first part is moving the huge amount of data, terabytes or even petabytes of data, and make sure the data is, the integrity of data is preserved. And the second thing, which will help in moving the data, and the second thing is running the existing application on the new database without changing any code. We don't want you to change any line of code to run your existing application or analytics application on the new data sources. So you can keep writing reports or queries in Oracle, and you would get the result from a Microsoft or a Amazon Redshift database.
I appreciate that explanation. It's an intriguing solution. Congratulations and good for your team. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Susan.
Yeah, this is great, and really appreciate that it's now like super early morning for you.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a bit, I have a bunch of questions, but I'll just ask my first one. You talked about that you didn't define the values of the company early enough and you weren't clear about them. And that created some friction, which I love that you're willing to be that honest. So here's my question. Was there a particular value that kind of caused most of the issues?
Oh, yeah. I think one value. This is something that we came up later on after we've talked with our advisors and we had internal discussions, and this is the value I really liked, and it was authenticity. And because we when we brainstormed, we had this, for example, transparency, inclusion. That's lots of nice values. But I think authenticity sums up a lot of good values in itself, and I think lack of authenticity and its definition and its communication hurt us a lot, during our. And with authenticity, I told you, people always judged us and said, this solution is too good to be true. And we wanted to pretend that, we are something that we are not, But being authentic, and we said, at some point, we said to people, you know what, this is the code, we built this part, and we haven't, the code is not finished. There are lots of things that is wrong with this code, but there are a few things that works with this code. And people, welcome this. And compared to when we said to them, okay, this is a huge opportunity for you to become our customer. They didn't like it, but when we're honest and we just managed the expectation, and they thought that we were being authentic. It resonated well with them, and the team didn't feel that they are, they are lying to customers, and they were very excited and motivated about delivering what they promised to build. So this was, I think, the value that was most important for us, and even for the customer, because we cannot compete with Oracle or Microsoft or AWS. The only way that we could distinguish ourselves from them is say, we are a startup, we want to help big guys, and we have limited resources, but we have something for you to get excited or to benefit you. Do you want to see this, or do you want to try this? That sounded much better than when we wanted to, show off or, just show them the good stuff. And I think in personal life, I think the more authentic we are, we are more comfortable, and we just have better communication with people around us.
I love it. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah,
Michael.
cool, thank you.
Nina, thanks so much. Obviously, I'm, unfortunately have been through, ERP adoptions and different things in my career. Know enough SQL to be dangerous, but by no means an expert. I think I'm like Ravel. Sometimes I look at this stuff and I see what people do, and I'm like, can't we just make it point and click and drop down, and then I can do whatever I want? Like, why are people still coding? Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But I just wondered, in this startup, and sometimes I struggle with this when I'm talking to people. Maybe you could chat with us about, what you've seen success. Are there certain maybe industries of people who are coming to you for this solution, or it's really a mix of everyone? Is it people in the US? Is it mostly people outside the US? Just kind of talk to us about, because obviously there's a ton of addressable market here, and people looking to go digital with their digital transformation strategies. I just wondered if maybe you've found a niche yet, or if there's a certain industry that is really coming to you, or if it's just all over. Talk about that.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. So this is a typical challenge for any startup to find their niche, and for us it was more challenging because Oracle we were going after Oracle customers, and Oracle has customers in every industry, and equally they are. So this was the first challenge, and we are based in the UK, and we were wondering whether we should go for the UK market, for the US market, for European market. And first of all, I think US, and not everywhere in states, for startups, I think the companies that are based in California, New York, and new technologies. And this is something that we could easily see from the open rate or response rate that we get from our prospects. So we focused more on the US companies, and I think US startups, they are lucky to be in the States because of there are so many early adopters in States, and this is not the case in Europe, because they are much less risk averse. With the industry, we had to test which industry to go for. Banking industry is the one that has the biggest amount of pain with Oracle, and their legacy databases and applications is the number one reason banks, traditional banks cannot compete with neobanks like Monzo, Starling, or Revolut. It's not about the business model, it's about the infrastructure that cannot compete with the newcomers. So we had this huge opportunity with banks, but basically banks are very risk averse, and we had to go to try other industries like insurance. And we realized, insurance is also regulated. Let's go to another. We found that for example, telecom is a good, early adopter for us, but and we've or car automobile industry, car manufacturers, they are a bit more open, or airline industry at this stage, they want to cut costs, and so it took us like 2 years to figure out which industry to go after, and for every startup is different, and you don't know until you try.
So just, quick follow-up, if I may. So I guess when you guys were thinking about that, was there, and again, I'm not trying to ask this to be, competitive or, sound, like I know something you don't. It's a curious question for everyone, right? It's, do you feel it, in your opinion, is it better to just try something and see if it works, or is there also value in that, I call it thought experiment, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe airlines are just too big for us right now. There's just too much going on. I know we can prove our value, and that's a good point, but maybe we stick with this, like you were saying, fintech bank kind of model. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
If I want to, if you want to know the answer, I just say, do it and learn by experiment. And the reason is, we've downloaded a lot of market research from Gartner, from Forrester, and we knew, for example, that this industry has more Oracle, and there is a better chance. But there are always something that you don't find in those market research. And for example, with pharma, I never knew that pharma industry has so much Oracle workloads or Oracle footprint, and they are so open to our new technologies. And the emails that we sent out to pharma companies during the pandemic, that they were all working on COVID, vaccines, and we thought that they were busy. We could set up a meeting like very quickly with pharma companies that they wanted to move away from Oracle, and it was something very surprising to us. And we couldn't guess from reading reports or reading statistics. This is by pure experimentation. So I think you should think, or you should have plan, but you will have lots of surprises on learnings by doing stuff. This is my personal experience. I don't. Maybe for you it might be different.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Like Susan said, honesty.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Judith, and then Lisa.
Hi. Thank you for your honesty and your forthcoming of the mistakes. I was fascinated by that, actually, because you learn so much from it. And I do want to share that it's so fascinating to me about it's the ready, fire, aim situation that you were talking about. It's not, so I'm an analytic, and I'm so afraid of failure, which is really bad in this situation. So I do the analysis paralysis thing, and it takes me a long time to fire, execute. So it's just so interesting now that the new way of thinking is, again, it's ready, fire, aim, fire, and then keep firing until you actually get there to where you want to go. So I thought that was interesting. But my question is more about the whole hire fast and fire fast. I want to learn more about that. I'm just interested in your experiences with that. Did you actually have to fire a bunch of people because you hired too fast? Did you personally do that? Like, firing people it's not pleasant. And in in hiring people, when you have to invest in people to get them to where you want they're productive. So I just kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about that, if you had any experiences.
Thank you for your question. I don't have much experience firing. I only not fired. I just had a friendly chat with someone that was underperforming for 4 months, and I think I was really patient with that person, and it just got worse. And just after talking to him, he realized that he's wasting his time, and he just needs a break, and he resigned. I didn't even fire him. He by just talking, he come to realize that he's not doing himself or the company any favor by staying. But I think within a month or two, you would see that how that person performs, and more importantly, this is something that we did in our second year, that we ask the co-workers and everyone in the team have a chat with the candidate. And it wasn't just the co-founders that they were interviewing the person, the engineering team. They were having a friendly chat with the candidate, and the insight that they got from the candidate was way deeper than what I understood. And that's, for me, it was very interesting, that because those were the guys that are gonna be colleague to that person, and they know who is a good player or who is not a good player, because that person might answer the right questions in the interview, but a colleague at work, he might be better at judging that person. So I think we have a very small team, and when a new person comes in, we ask everyone's opinion, and when we want to fire, we ask everyone's opinion, and basically, I think it's a group, more of a group decision whether that person is good for the team or not. But I think after a month or two, you could really see if that person is, fit with the team or not.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. So I have team members who, there's usually HR situations that you have to deal with and document. It's a whole process. So that's why I was just kind of curious about you. You're a small team, and I don't know how much, for lack of a better word, HR policy stuff you have to do to, So I was just curious.
And the good thing about hiring fast and firing faster is that if you fire, I don't know the state law.
Oh, you're breaking up. Or am I breaking up?
Oh yeah, Nima, it was a poor connection. If you could just repeat that last sentence. I think we're losing Nima. I think there's a network connection issue. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
So I don't know US law, but in England, if the employee becomes a full-time or permanent employee after the first few months, it becomes nearly impossible to fire them. So it's better after the probation, it's nearly impossible. So it's better to just decide quickly whether and people in their first few weeks or month, they have their highest motivation, and if they cannot perform within the first few months, they wouldn't be able to perform later on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Judith. Lisa.
Okay, hi, great. Thank you so much for being so honest and sharing. I guess you're being authentic, right? You talked about authenticity, and I sincerely appreciate that. I live in New Mexico, and we have Los Alamos National Labs here. And that is, we had the Manhattan Project years ago and built the atomic bomb. The current budget is like over $3 billion annually, with Department of Energy. And in 1993, when I got my MBA, they created a program for MIS students. So it's an MBA with a focus on MIS. So we learned Oracle. And then I remember being in class and doing projects, and someone said, I wonder why these databases can't talk to each other, right? So I'm thinking back to 1993. I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing, the things that you've done. So I can sincerely appreciate what you're doing. So I have two questions. One is, have you ever worked in that government space, right? And then the second thing is, in my work, we're moving from an Azure cloud, Azure environment for development over to AWS. And so have you done work with helping people make that transition?
Thank you for your question and the compliment. Regarding the government, I haven't worked at any government in my whole life, but we are working with government customers at the moment, and they have so many legacy systems, and they are the worst type of customers. You need a lot of patience with government agencies or organizations if you are a startup founder. When you say you said about moving from one cloud vendor to another, nowadays most organizations, they are already in the cloud, and most of the migrations are intra-cloud or inter-cloud kind of migrations, and our tool is vendor neutral or vendor agnostic or cloud agnostic. It can also help enterprises move from one cloud to another, or from one database within a cloud to another database within the same cloud. So all of these combinations is possible with our tool.
That's wonderful. I'm in the healthcare industry, healthcare IT. So thank you.
Lisa, thank you. I'm going to ask one last question. I'm looking at the time. Nima, I know it's really late where you are. So, and I'll ask the question. Did you have any technology hiccups while you were developing this? And were there any, oh boy, this was a lot harder than we thought? And the reason why I'm asking this is because my startup is dealing with a technology hiccup. And it's just like, how did you not give up? Like, enough, I'm done. We can't figure this out. I don't know if that was a good question or not, or if we lost Nima.
Yeah, it was a very good question, and this is something that I face every day. And every day there is a challenge that was even our CTO that would say, I don't know how to handle this. This might be a deal breaker for us. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. And as a co-founder, I have to, keep calm, be optimistic, and just, sometimes techies, they are very stubborn, and they just, narrow-minded. And you have to say, oh, is there any way you could look at this, or, and just motivate them not to give up, and this happens all the time. As I said, if you always have to remind yourself of your value and your goal and why you are doing this, so that you have the energy and the fuel to keep going, because every day there is something that doesn't work, and there is a obstacle that you have to overcome.
Nima, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for joining us. This was a real honor and a pleasure. I know it's really late there. Susan?
Yeah, so again, incredibly authentic, inspirational, beautiful, wonderful. Thank you. And Manyan, thank you for bringing Nima to us. And Nima, if we have more questions, because I'm pretty sure people will, of you, would it be okay to reach out to you and stay in touch?
I'm more than happy. You can, I don't know if you have my email. It's nima@liberatii.com, or I can ask Manyan to share my email, or you can reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever media that's convenient for you.
Thank you, Nima. Thank you, Nima. This is a great
Thanks.
session. We all learned
Thank you.
quite a
Have
bit.
a great evening.
And looking forward to see more.
Thanks,
you.
Manyan.
Yeah,
I'm going to
thank
pause the
you.
recording.